On February 10th, 2006, a devastating piece of news broke in Anchal, a small town in Kerala's Kollam district in southwestern India. A triple homicide had been committed, but unlike many such cases, the police identified the culprits almost immediately. They had names, photographs, financial records, and witnesses who could identify both suspects. But the two men responsible had simply vanished. What followed was one of the most frustrating pursuits in Kerala's criminal history. Investigators chasing leads across multiple cities, tracking ATM withdrawals, coordinating with the army, and watching every promising trail go cold. After almost 2 decades, it seemed like these men might never be caught. That is, until the police made one last desperate move. They turned to AI. This is the Kerala triple murder case. To get a better understanding of why this case mattered so deeply, why one investigator never let it go, and why one woman spent 19 years waiting for justice, we need to go back to that morning in February 2006. Initially, it was perfectly ordinary. Santama had cooked green gram and poured a glass of milk for her daughter, Ranjini, before heading out to run some errands. Ranjini needed her strength. She had just become a mother herself. Her twin daughters were only 17 days old. Ranjini was suffering from the stigma of being an unmarried mother, but she had been working hard to make a better life for herself and her children. What Ranjini didn't know was that someone had already decided she wouldn't live to see her plans through. By the time Santama returned, Ranjini and both babies were dead, their throats slit. But before we dive into exactly what happened, we should learn more about the women at the center of the story, starting with Santama. Santama's life had never been easy. She'd gotten married, built a family, had a beautiful daughter, and then her husband walked out on them before Ranjini even had the chance to grow up. And just like that, Santama was on her own. As a single mother, she took whatever work she could find, eventually landing a job at a factory. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough to keep her daughter comfortable. At some point, Santama had to undergo a hysterectomy. And through all that, Ranjini offered her constant support, her reason to keep going. As Santama herself put it, "My child was all I had to take care of me." By the time Ranjini was an adult, she lived in Anchal with her mother in a small, simply furnished house. No frills, no extras, but it was theirs. She'd grown up there, watched her mother sacrifice everything to keep the lights on, and had built a quiet, happy life for herself. Simple, yes, but enough. Living in that same town was a young man named Divil Kumar, a soldier in the army. And as tends to happen in small towns, their paths eventually crossed. Now here's where the story gets complicated because there are actually 2 versions of what happened between Ranjini and Divil. The version that most media outlets ran with goes something like this. Ranjini and Divil met by chance, became friends, and over time, those feelings deepened into a relationship. Ranjini was around 20 at the time, full of life, and completely in love. She believed this was it, that the two of them would never be separated. They weren't married, and maybe they shouldn't have made things physical, but they felt so happy with each other that they crossed that line willingly. But her mother, Santama, tells a very different story. According to her, there was no romance, no friendship deepening into love. In fact, no kind of relationship at all. Divil had been stalking Ranjini since they had become neighbors. And one day, while Santama was recovering in the hospital after her operation, Ranjini went home alone. And Divil took his chance. He was waiting inside her house and rushed at her with something to sedate her. Ranjini lost consciousness immediately. She didn't wake up until the next day, finding herself alone with a searing pain in her lower body. Her memory was almost entirely blank. The last thing she could recall was the face of a man, and then everything went dark. In the cold light of the morning, she saw the blood, and she understood exactly what had happened to her. Ranjini later discovered she was pregnant with twins. It was a shock. She was unmarried, and in many parts of Asia, even today, the stigma surrounding an unmarried woman falling pregnant can be absolutely brutal. The judgment, the whispers, the social pressure. Ranjini weighed her options and ultimately decided to keep the babies. On January 24th, 2006, she gave birth to 2 healthy twin daughters. While at the hospital, she met a man named Anil Kumar. He said he was also from Kolkata and that a close relative of his had just been admitted for delivery too. That shared connection made Ranjini feel at ease. He was soft-spoken, warm, and genuinely helpful. In a situation as isolating and difficult as hers, having someone like that around felt like a small mercy. He even stayed close by in case Ranjini needed a blood transfusion, because their blood types matched. As they grew closer, Ranjini felt comfortable enough to open up to him about the pregnancy, about everything. Anil even drove Santama, Ranjini, and the twins home from the hospital. Ranjini thought she had found a true friend. She hadn't. Anil wasn't who he said he was. His real name was Rajesh, and he served in the Indian Army with Devil. The kind stranger was not a stranger at all, and he certainly wasn't a friend to Ranjini. Meanwhile, with the twins now here, Santama decided the family needed to leave Anchal. The rumors were already spreading, and the judgment from the community was relentless. With Anil's, or rather Rajesh's, help, they rented a place in the suburbs of another city. But even after they moved, the gossip followed them. Ranjini decided she wasn't going to keep running. She returned to Anchal, determined to face whatever came her way. Still, the social stigma didn't let up. Back in Anchal, she and her mother initially stayed at a relative's house. And even there, the judgment was constant, not just from the neighbors, but from the very relatives they were living with. Ranjini wanted it to stop, so she did something that must have cost her enormously. She wrote a letter to Devil Kumar. Not a letter of anger or accusation, a plea. She just wanted him to acknowledge the truth, to formally recognize the twins and his children so they'd at least have a father's name on their birth certificates. Devil denied paternity, and his brother-in-law, Sri Kumar, suggested Ranjini take the matter to the police or the State Women's Commission. Ranjini and Santama followed through. When they appeared before the commission, Ranjini was advised to frame her pregnancy as the result of a consensual relationship. The reasoning being that Devil would be more receptive and cooperative if the official narrative framed him in a positive light. Many believed this is why the media later portrayed Ranjini and Devil's relationship as a romance. The commission ordered a DNA test to determine paternity. Devil's family agreed, as they were deeply skeptical and questioned Ranjini's character. But it was no help. Before the results could even come back, tragedy struck. On February 10th, Rajesh, still going by Anil, stopped by Ranjini's house as though it were a casual visit. He then suggested to Santama that she head to the local administrative office to take care of the twins' birth certificates. She agreed, leaving Ranjini at home with Rajesh and the babies. That was the exact opportunity he'd been waiting for. He stabbed Ranjini and slit her throat, then killed both infants the same way. He didn't bother to clean up. He simply walked out. When Santama came home later that afternoon, carrying grapes and eggs for Ranjini, she walked into an eerie silence. She called out Ranjini's name, moved through the house, and then she found them. Blood everywhere. Santosh, a locally elected representative for the area, later described the scene, saying, "We went inside and saw the bodies of babies. Ants were running over their faces. I could never get over that sight." Police arrived and launched an immediate investigation. One of the first major leads came from a motorcycle registration certificate found at the scene. They traced it to its original owner, who confirmed he had sold it to a secondhand shop in another city. When officers showed the shop employee a photograph of Devil Kumar, the person with the most direct connection to Ranjini, and he identified him right away. But the employee added something else. Another man had come with Devil and had asked the employee to accompany him to a nearby ATM to withdraw 6,000 rupees, which is about $65 in cash. It was a promising lead, but the employee didn't know the second man's name. So the police looked at the ATM transaction records, and there it was, a withdrawal linked to a bank account under the name Rajesh. The police contacted the army, who confirmed that Rajesh had been on leave at the time of the murders. The army faxed over his photograph, and both Santhama and the shop employee confirmed it. The man they had met was, in fact, Rajesh. The big picture was coming together. Devil had almost certainly planned the murders from the moment he found out about Ranjini's pregnancy. He'd enlisted Rajesh to get close to Ranjini and lower her guard. And when the moment was right, Rajesh carried out the killings. But while the police were getting their case together, Devil had clearly gotten wind that he was a suspect. He deserted the army and went on the run. Rajesh never returned to the military at all, leading the army to officially declare the two of them deserters in March 2006, just weeks after the murders. The police, led by then District Inspector Shanavaz, chased every lead to track them down. ATM records show Devil traveling to Delhi, Nashik, and Nagpur. Police traveled to these cities hot on their trail, but every single time, Devil and Rajesh slipped away. In 2010, the High Court handed the investigation over to the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI. By 2013, the CBI had formally indicted both men. The court even declared them as proclaimed offenders, legally recognizing them as fugitives from justice. But still, no arrests were made. The trail had gone completely cold. Years went by, and then, one day, one conversation changed everything. Shanavaz, now a superintendent of police, found himself discussing the case with colleagues at the Kerala Police Intelligence Wing. Maybe it was a way of processing it, of carrying the weight of a case that he had never been able to close. For Shanavaz, it had never really ended. He still saw Santhama's face in his mind, still felt the sting of knowing there were wanted fugitives who had roamed free for years without consequence. What he didn't expect was that one of those colleagues would take the challenge and run with it. In 2023, the Kerala Police Intelligence Wing quietly reopened the case on their own. Even though the CBI officially held jurisdiction, there was no harm in trying to track these men down. At this time, they had something they didn't have before: AI. The first thing they looked at was the old photographs of Devil and Rajesh. These pictures were over a decade old. They would likely be of no use in identifying the men now. So they used AI to age the suspects in the photographs and generate pictures of what they might look like today. The team cycled through prompts, switched between platforms, and adjusted every variable they could think of: wrinkles, hair length, potential scars, trying to build the most realistic version of what these men might look like nearly 20 years after the crimes. Then they took those pictures and used reverse image search to find a match. And they found one. A wedding photograph shared on a public Facebook page. Sources differ on which of the two was identified first. Some say it was DeVille, others say Rajesh. Either way, the police had finally tracked these men down to the city of Puducherry. Over the period of almost 20 years, they had reinvented themselves. They had new names, forged national identity cards. Both had married. DeVille, going by the name Vishnu, had even opened an interior design firm. The two had quietly blended into the local community, hiding their dark past. Once the intelligence wing confirmed the men's new identities, they immediately notified the local CBI unit. On January 4th, 2025, DeVille and Rajesh were arrested in Puducherry, nearly 19 years after the murders. After he was apprehended, DeVille confessed and admitted that he had begun planning the murders when Ranjini was still pregnant, which means before his children had even taken their first breaths. He was already strategizing when they would take their last. For Santama, the arrests brought something she had been waiting 2 decades for: closure. She never stopped believing justice would come, not once. In the years after the murders, she moved to another city, left her factory job behind, and began earning a living by reciting the religious text, Srimad Bhagavatam, at temples. She rebuilt her life around faith. When Shanavas called her personally to share the news, Santama was at a temple. She completely broke down over the phone. She said it felt as though the weight she'd carried for 19 years had finally been lifted off her shoulders. There was finally hope that the killers would face justice. According to reports, DeVille and Rajesh are currently in prison. We don't yet know what will follow next, but what Santama wants is the most severe punishment the law allows for the 2 men who took everything from her. Santama lost her entire family in one morning and had to suffer the pain of knowing the killers were out there, on the run, for almost 20 years. But she was fortunate that there was one person on the police force who just couldn't let go, who ultimately led to the case being reopened and led to the arrest of DeVille and Rajesh. And there's another unexpected hero in this case: AI. Though this technology is one of the most intensely debated topics of our time, in this one situation, it helped to crack a cold case. And hopefully, this will lead to justice for Ranjini and her 2 babies, who were taken from the world before they had a chance to experience it. So, what do you think about this case? Do you think AI could be used as a positive tool in more crime investigations? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching.